Welcome back to another edition of How to Rock the Virtual Stage. I'm the host of Trigger, Rich Bontrager, where we're here to help you every week to give you insights, tips, and tricks to better rock the virtual stage. I've been a broadcaster for over 30 years, public speaker, and I'm here to help you by bringing you great guests, experts from many different areas to help you better rock the stage with presentation skills, with insights of how to interview, how to present better and more compelling. And it's fun every week to have people from many different industries because let's face it, the virtual stage is not going away. It doesn't matter if you're a school teacher, a pastor, if you're a CEO or a small business, the virtual stage now is something we have to learn to better address and do in everyday life and for our businesses to succeed for consumer confidence. We do it in so many different ways. I want to tell you about the next couple of weeks and some of the exciting guests we have coming up as we get ready to go tonight on How to Rock the Virtual Stage. So coming up next Wednesday night, we are going to have Chris Bora with us. Chris is the virtual conference and event man. He has a platform that he worked with, and he helps you create compelling and exciting events. He's a community builder. He's a businessman, but he's also a networking speaker coach. He helps you take your events and make them into mega virtual events in very creative ways. We're going to take a deeper dive into his events and look at how they do it through their exciting platform. Coming up on 2 weeks, we're going to flip the tables on the trigger. Yes, it's going to be turn the tables on me. We're going to have a guest host come on in 2 weeks, and they will be asking me questions. I will be the guest. They will be the guest host, and they're not even telling me what the questions are going to be. Now, we're doing this for a couple of different reasons, because one of them is we want to show you practical ways to change up your own shows, your podcasts, your webinars to make them more interesting and compelling by doing unique things like this. So join us on February the 24th. Now, coming up tonight, we have a Globetrotter with us. I'm telling you, a real Globetrotter from the Harlem Globetrotters. In fact, this guy was a small town boy, and he worked himself up to be a Globetrotter, and he even got the Pope to twirl the ball on his finger. How cool is that? Um, Herb Flight Time Lang is his name, better known as Flight Time with the Globetrotters. He's a former Globetrotter. He's a best-selling author, keynote speaker, motivational speaker, TV producer, and he's also on a campaign right now because kindness is free. Hashtag it. Use it now. Hashtag kindness is free. That's one of his big campaigns. We'll be talking about that tonight here on the show. And he was a little boy, and he believes now as an adult, his reputation, his story is very, very important. He believes that other people's stories are very important. He wants to empower, encourage, and equip people to do that through the virtual stage and through his books and other things that he's highly involved with now. Herb is now on a journey of motivation, inspiration, passion, and creation. By the way, again, kindness is free. And let's welcome to the stage Herb Lang here. And Herb, as we get rolling tonight, I want to ask you, you've been watching us, you've been in the crowd, you've been following the show here, being one of the participants. You've been traveling, public speaker, interviewed many times. So what's it like to literally now to be pulled in from the crowd and be on the virtual stage? How did you get here, and what are you learning about this whole virtual stage stuff?
We ended up meeting on LinkedIn, and I began to follow some of the things that you were doing on virtually. And so for me, having jumped in after that first rocking the virtual stage is something that I try to make sure that I make every Wednesday night, and I've learned a lot from it. Just even speaking before we got on camera, you talked about my lighting in the background and even moving the chair, because typically I'm all the way back to the wall, but I wanted to make sure that everybody got a real good view of my handsome bald head, as well as the good lighting, and take some of the tips that you guys have given us over the past couple of months with rocking the virtual stage.
Well, it is fun to take someone from the audience and bring them up here and show, because I can remember when the first calls, yeah, you were kind of back in the shadow. It was a little bit creepy even, but now look how polished and look how good you look, man. Tell us about your upbringing a little bit, because how do you go from a kid, Arkansas was one of the places you lived well, right?
Yeah, I
How do you
grew up
go
in
from
Arkansas.
Arkansas to meeting the Pope and being a Globetrotter? I mean, every kid wants to be a basketball player, but a Globetrotter? Come on, man.
Yeah, Rich. Well, for me, it was more than a dream come true. Growing up in the small town of Arkansas, my mother had me at a really, really young age, but I was surrounded by people who wanted to see me do well. It was a community that was really sports driven, and for us, we saw sports as a way, to see the world, to do better things. And Growing up in a small town, I made sure that I surrounded myself with a group of young men and young women who wanted better things for themselves as well as their families. So, in competition, when we talk about sports, I surrounded myself with a group of young men who not only competed in basketball, football, track, sport, whatever sport you name it. We also competed in math. We competed in science. We competed to see who would be on the honor roll or who would be, ranked highest when we graduated from high school. And this, put me in a position to where even if I turned out not to be a good basketball player, I had an opportunity to go to college on an academic scholarship. Being president of my class.
What was it like to put on that uniform for the first time? Melark Lemon, Pabs. What's it like to put that on and join that type of? For me, growing up, man, it was the coolest thing every time they came through town.
Well, Rich, it was more than a dream come true. Growing up, my first love was football because I was really small. I was if you look at my seventh grade basketball photo or even football photo, I'm the guy standing at the end, not the middle. And for me, I was fast. But the Globetrotters for me, I really fell in love with basketball probably around my freshman year. Although I played all the way up till then, it was at this point that I realized that, I could be pretty good at this. And the way the Globetrotter story came in is that, my grandmother, my great grandmother, she was a big fan of the Harlem Globetrotters. And I just remember sitting in her living room in Brinkley, Arkansas. And every time that the Globetrotters would come on Disney Wild World of Sports or a cartoon or the popcorn, machine with Curly Neal, Meadowlark Lemon and those guys, Geese Osby, we were always in tune. And I just remember her laughing and just having such a good time. Unfortunately, she passed away before I joined the Globetrotters. But when I joined the Globetrotters, she was the first person that I thought of.
You know, I'm just thinking here. I had forgotten about Saturday morning cartoons, and the Globetrotters were animated with Scooby
Scooby
Doo.
Doo. Scooby Doo.
Were you ever animated?
You know what? I was not animated on Scooby Doo, but one of my favorite all time Globetrotters, who was also my coach for a number of years and still a good friend of mine, Sweet Lou Dunbar. He was the guy on the Saturday morning cartoon that had the big afro and they would, pull different things out that were needed. If you needed a wrench to unscrew something, or if you needed something to change a tire, you just reach in Sweet Lou's afro and you could pull it out.
Don't forget, everybody, we have the chat box going. You can ask questions through the chat box. We have the Q&A going tonight, as always. And the second half of the show, we will bring you backstage, and you do get a talk with Herb, cameras and mics on, and have a great time with us. The first half, take some notes. Let's talk about also the transition, because you've mentioned this once before in our private conversation, and I've worked with athletes. I've been around pro sports a lot. People may not realize you guys are coached on public speaking because you are representatives of both the team, the country. Talk us through how you got prepped to go to the microphone like that.
Well, for me, Richard, actually it started in college. In college, I was, my first couple of years, I wasn't the best basketball player on the team, but I was a contributor to the team. And I remember my junior year in college, I took a course on public speaking. And for me, little did I know that it was preparing me for my future. I just can remember being in that class and giving my first couple of speeches. I remember I gave a demonstrative speech on how to bowl. And I was just actually taking a bowling class at that same time. But what it did, it gave me the confidence to sit in front of a group of people, a group of, strangers per se, a large audience of students of my peers, so to speak. But one thing about the Globetrotters is that, they do a really good job of teaching the up and coming players that in order to become valuable in the organization, you have to be more than a basketball player. Globetrotters are ambassadors of goodwill. You have to be able to speak in front of a large audience. You have to be able to go into a hospital or a large corporation and entertain. Whenever the basketball is rolled out or the stage is set, you're on. And so I was actually one of the guys toward the end of my career when new guys would come in, I would interview them, ask them the tough questions that they wouldn't expect. And that was always a lot of fun because I would always ask them questions like, so what are the women like on the road? And these guys would be like, oh, am I supposed to answer that? And they would actually say this on camera. So, we would teach them how to expect the unexpected and how to divert the question to actually what you want to talk about and the point that you want to get across.
That's fabulous. And so how has that changed now going virtual? Because you now are an author, you're a speaker. How has that transition been from the live interview to stuff like this?
Well, I tell you, I mean, it hasn't been as easy. I mean, myself having done hundreds of speaking engagements, even before COVID, I had just done four live, probably my best four speaking engagements since I retired from the Globetrotters, and I'm just used to that interaction. And it's been an adjustment, but that's one of the things that the Globetrotters taught us. How to adjust. Sometimes we would show up in arenas and there would be slick floors. So what we would do is we would put towels on the side and put Coca-Cola over them to make sure that our shoes were sticky. I mean, we would play in bull arenas. We would show up and not really have any idea, what to expect. But what we realize is that we have an audience, we have a group of people who are expecting for that couple of hours for you to take their mind away and give them something positive, to think about, and also to be able to share some memories that they had when they were young with their kids. So I mean, those are some of the great things, some of the great attributes that they taught us. And I'm retired, but there's still a bunch of young, great up and coming Globetrotters as they're following in the footsteps of myself the same way that I did, following the footsteps of Curly Neal and Meadowlark Lemon. And hey, you actually got the same haircut as Curly Neal, me and you both.
Yeah, I actually saw Curly and Meadowlark and the original pretty early. They came to my hometown of Elkhart, Indiana. Did you ever play in Elkhart, Indiana?
You know what? I didn't play in Elkhart, Indiana, but I played at Notre Dame many times. But I'll tell you what, we had an official. His name was Danny. I can't think of Danny Hurt was his name. He was one of my officials early on in my Globetrotter career. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but the officials, they kind of come on the road with us as well. But he was just a great guy, and that was the first time I had ever heard of Elkhart, Indiana.
There we go. A Hoosier through and through. By the way, someone else threw in the chat box here. Didn't the Globetrotters get stranded on Gilligan's Island as well?
That's right. I actually wasn't on Gilligan's Island, but again, Curly Neal, Meadowlark Lemon, Sweet Lou Dunbar, they were on Gilligan's Island. They were on the Donahue Show. They were on the Love Boat. I mean, the Globetrotters back then were popping up, pretty much everywhere. For me, even during my course of my career, I was lucky enough to be able to make some pretty awesome appearances during my time, because for a little while you didn't see the Globetrotters on TV as much. But around 2007, a new ownership came in, and myself and my teammate Big Easy, we were able to do a show called The Amazing Race, which we did three times, and we lost three times. That we appeared on an episode of The Bachelorette, not as bachelors, but guys who would decide who the bachelor would take on her Independence Day, Cupcake Wars, Hell's Kitchen. I mean, you name it. It was just a blast, to be able to do and appear on so many different things that, like you said, a guy from small town Arkansas could have never imagined having these experiences.
Well, perfect question. This is coming from Aaron. Perfect transition for this question from Aaron. What happened to your mindset when you realized your identity of greatness as a globetrotter, but now you're not a globetrotter? What's that line of being celebrity stardom, globetrotter, and now you're just Herb? Talk
Right.
to that mindset shift.
Well, we have a motto: once a Globetrotter, always a Globetrotter. And if you follow social media now, a lot of these athletes today, us athletes today, we try to definitely define ourselves as more than that team that we played for. The difference is with the Globetrotters is that it's not a league; it's one team. If you're in the NBA or NFL, if you get cut or whatever, maybe another team will pick you up, or maybe it's so you can join somebody's coaching staff. But when the Globetrotters let you go, you're kind of out there, and you're forced to kind of either go get a real job or take some of those attributes and resources, connections that you've made over the course of whatever amount of time that you've been there. For me, 18 years. But it's a tough transition. I mean, the first year it was tough. I mean, I went in to a little bit, I'm not afraid to admit, a little bit of depression, a little bit of soul searching, but I eventually found my purpose. I realized that God and the universe has showed me so many things, and it was my duty to be able to share these things with the world. And that's when I began to speak again. I began to write books. I mean, who would have thought little boy from Brinkley, Arkansas would become a best-selling author?
And that's where I want to take the conversation now. So that's a perfect segue into your passion, your heartbeat, your philanthropy, and everything else. So I'm going to launch a poll here with everybody because we're going to talk about the guy that was just everyday ordinary and those dreams. And do we really believe dreams can happen? So here's my question now. Do you believe your life story can have a lasting impact on people's lives? Because Herb believes his life story can have a lasting impact. That's where we're going next. But do you believe that your life story can have a lasting impact? No way. Yes. Maybe. Or Maybe someday, but not right now. Let's see what the poll does here. We're going to throw that out there and keep talking flight time here. So, when did you realize that beyond everything else we've just been talking about, the story, the richness, that's the real message? When did you realize I have a greater message? You talk about faith, you talk about things like that, the hope. When did you pivot and realize there's more than just the basketball?
Well, it took that full year that I took off. It took me going through leadership. It took me realizing how much time I wasted. I'm sitting on the bus traveling so many thousands of miles, and I wish I'd have read more if I could go back and turn back the hands of time. But as I look at where I'm at right now, I feel like everything happened for a purpose, for a reason. And my purpose is to spread kindness. My purpose is to show people and teach people through my experiences of traveling to nearly 90 different countries around the world and being around so many different people from so many different races, political backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, that at the end of the day, we all kind of want the same thing. We want happiness, we want love, we want our families to be taken care of, we want this world, to be a better place. And with the question about dreaming, as a kid, I dreamed this. I dreamed that I would be a professional basketball player, and it actually happened. But what I also realized that post Globetrotting is that doesn't mean I don't get to keep dreaming. Even at 44 years old, I still get to dream. Maybe not the same dreams. I can't become a professional basketball player all over again because I'm obviously too old. But that doesn't mean I can't become this best-selling author. That doesn't mean I can't become a TV producer based on all the experiences that I had on TV and all the time that I spent behind the camera. I get to show my kids, who may hear stories about how great I was in high school or in college or with the Globetrotters. I get to show them how great I am now and what I'm doing now to not only make me better, but also make this world a better place for them as well.
90 countries, 18 seasons as a player and as a coach. Which did you enjoy more? Transitioning to a coach or being on the court every day?
You know what? It's funny you asked that. I was just doing a podcast this morning with my former teammate, Big Easy, who I did the Amazing Race with, and he actually still plays. He didn't know I was going to pop up on this podcast, and the guy who was introducing us or speaking to us on his podcast, his name is Nick, and they asked me the same question. And the thing that you miss most about being on tour is the camaraderie on the bus, the camaraderie with the fans, being able to hug them, being able to hear the stories about how, when I was a kid, I went to see Meadowlark Lemon and you guys are just as good as they were. Now, those are the things that I miss. But one thing I don't miss is running up and down that court, running up and down that court each and every night, because a lot of people may not realize this, that when the Globetrotters are on tour, when we would start our tour around Christmas, we would go all the way through April, and we would be lucky to have 1 or 2 days off a month. And then on the weekends, on a Saturday or a Sunday, sometimes we would have two shows. It would be two shows in Columbus, Ohio, two shows in Cleveland, two shows in Pittsburgh, two shows at the Staples Center. So one thing I don't miss is running up and down the court, but I do miss the guys. I miss teaching the guys, all the things that the guys such as Curly Neal and Meadowlark Lemon, taught us. But I mean, it was a great experience, and I'm just happy now that, even after my career was over, I'm able to go back and look on that court and see those young players out there have an opportunity to experience many of the same things I've been able to experience in my life.
So you've gone to be all that to now philanthropist, to be, let's talk about your hashtag movement. Let's talk about this kindness is free stuff. Let's talk about this mixed up world we live in right now. And you talk about kindness. What is this really about, Herb?
Well, for me, growing up in Arkansas, I was lucky enough to be raised not only, by my mom, but my grandparents. I had, my grandmother on my dad's side, my grandfather had my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side, my great grandparents, even. And I just remember my grandmother on my mom's side, she was a caretaker and she didn't have much, but she would walk around town and I would walk with her and we would just check on, you know, people that she cared about, people who were older. She would always check on older people with really expecting nothing in return. And I think it's something that was instilled in me at a young age. And even now, I was thinking about this today before we got on. I have to really try hard to be mean to somebody, to even kind of put my foot down. And I'll give you an example of this, like, in a relationship, my fiance here, sometimes we have our disagreements or whatnot. And I'll be like, well, I'm going to do this today and try to make sure that, she realized that I can be mean too. And then before I know it, I'm like, oh, I can't do this. Let me go ahead and, let me go ahead and clean up her side of the room, or let me go ahead and make sure the dishes are good. Let me go ahead and cook her dinner, because I know how it makes her feel. And I know it's going to make me feel good anyway, because it's a lot easier for me, to be kind than to be mean. And even during my Globetrotter years, if you look in the programs, my motto was always patience and kindness. But on a podcast probably about a year and a half ago, it came out just by naturally speaking, kindness is free. And it was like a light bulb that went off in my head. And ever since then, I've been, kindness is free. And I know that I don't want to even, go back to thinking any other kind of way. And I'm going to spread kindness all over the world.
So that started pre-COVID. That probably started before some of the civil unrest and some of the things we went through 2020 with. As we went through 2020, as you launched a Facebook group, as you began to make buttons and pins and things to get it all going, how much of an impact do you think that began to have when you're talking about, and you already were talking about, kindness is free in the middle of a lot of social injustice and stress?
I mean, I know it's had a major impact. I mean, even you mentioned the Facebook group that I've started. I've joined all of these, kindness communities. I've joined and started following all of these kindness groups on Instagram and Twitter, and it's just inspirational. A lot of times when we pull up our phones or we pull up our computers, there's so much negative media and so much negative news that's being put out there for us. And one of the things that I did, even with my siblings, I have a total of six sisters and three brothers, and I follow them all on
Ooh.
social media, and I follow my family. And so I challenged them. I said, look, we're putting all this negative stuff up on social media. We don't need to do that. Enough people are put that out there. I understand that we want to have a conversation about certain things, but how about we put a couple of positive things out there? Let's do 2 to 1, two positive things, and then one thing that you want to have a conversation about. And so that's just kind of how I, how I carry myself now. I'm trying to put positive things out there, and I'm doing it every day, and it's becoming easier and easier. And I'm realizing also that, like, even on my Instagram, some of the days if I don't post, kindness is free, or a song, or me doing my walk in the morning, people will email me and say, hey, what happened? You didn't post anything today. So that lets you know that you're actually doing something well when people are noticing when it doesn't happen and you're making an impact.
So how are you leveraging the virtual stage now to spread that? Because it's really beginning to take off. I think it's very powerful, extremely timely. How are you leveraging the virtual stage to really help get that message broader?
Well, I've been able to, speak to a few, schools and a couple of corporations here and there. Not as busy as I would like to be. I'm looking to get a little bit, more busy, but I'm still polishing up. Like I said, I'm coming on your show each and every week, taking notes from your guests, learning how to, become better on film, how to prepare better with this virtual stage. Because a lot of what I did was human to human contact. When I would go into a corporation or into a school or wherever. It's me bringing people on stage and maybe teaching them tricks, but also implementing and teaching them about the importance of keeping excitement for their success, as well as the importance of being kind. So it's not been a seamless transition, but it's something that I'm as a former Globetrotter, that I'm also willing to learn and also willing and able to adapt to.
Let's go back to our poll here now. Thanks to everyone that voted. Do you believe that your life story can leave a lasting impact? We've heard a little bit about Herb's. We'll probably ask more in the post show and the green room side of things backstage. But here's how the poll came out. Herb, what do you think about this? Here's the reaction. Overall, this crowd is saying yes, but we have people in all categories, from no way to maybe someday, but not today. Talk through those emotions when you have those dreams, those aspirations that you can, but some people are not quite so sure. Talk to that, please.
Well, I'll say those people that are at, maybe you're closer than you think that you are. You're closer than you think that you are. And and for me, uh, as a globetrotter, we always had people that were there to kind of push us. All right, we're sending you here. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. A lot of us don't have that support, and even me now, as a person out on my own, a person that's out speaking on my own, not as easy, to promote yourself as it was to promote them. But I just say, hey, your story is definitely worth being shared. You get to make a difference in people's life. I look back and I think about, even recently, I remember going to visit a young girl in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was in the hospital. She was probably about 6 years old. And just a couple of months ago, she went and found me on Instagram, and she sent me a message. She remembered me, and she remembered my name, and she wanted to reach out to me and tell me thank you, for coming and visit her when she was 6 years old, and how she's a teenager now. So when you get stories like that, and some of the emails that we would get, on the road, and even some of the stuff that I still get now, that right there lets you know that it's worth it. And those are the things right there that make me keep going and make me realize that what I'm doing is worth it. And, we talk about changing the world. The world is changing. We are changing the world for good. And it's just, kindness is something that's contagious, and it's something that's a domino effect, So I just encourage anybody and everybody out there to just try it. Give it a try. Give peace a try.
So before we have you do the ball trick, but I love the ball trick, but one of the things I love about doing this show is I've always been coaching. I've always been helping people. You're a coach yourself. So put on the coaching hat for a second here. And virtual stage coaching, we have people like yourself that are trying up and up and up, but you have celebrity status. You have an engine behind you. And we do have some people that drop in and out that are gaining ground. Doors are opening up. Opportunities are opening up. Talk to that fact. What's it like, and how did you best grab it, conduct yourself? And what tips can you give them for the virtual stage is now here for you? Grab it.
Well, I mean, I just say, take advantage of this opportunity with all the social media and stuff out there. Just like kindness, most of this social media is free too. A lot of us are quick to, like I said, promote some of the negative things that are coming out there, but you get to talk about the things that you are passionate about. And that's one other thing about the Globetrotters. The Globetrotters are great, but they had a certain message that we were supposed to speak on. There were certain things that we were supposed to stay away from. But now, as a person who is out on my own, I'm able to be authentic. I'm able to be more vulnerable, a little bit more passionate about things I wasn't able to share then. And what you say matters. The way that you feel actually matters. And you never know what influence that you can have on somebody who is right next to you. And again, it's just a domino effect. So don't be afraid to reach for your goals. Don't be afraid to be heard. You deserve to be heard. That's why you were given a voice. So use it.
That's marvelous, man. That is fantastic. Now, we got to pull the ball off. You taught the Pope how to spin a ball, or you faked it. But I, as a kid, man, I grew up in Indiana, the home of basketball. I was born with high tops on. I never learned how to spin the ball. Can you show us how this is done, man? We're going to geek out for a minute here.
Well, Rich, it's kind of like when I explain this to young kids, I try to define it like it's like the earth spinning on its axis. Okay. So you have this basketball, when you shoot it, you kind of want to have the backwards rotation, but when you spin it, you want to have the sideways rotation, just like the earth spinning on its axis. And then you want to catch it right in the middle. So throw it up like that. And there you go.
Now, does every Globetrotter have to be
not going anywhere for a while?
Is that a requirement to be a Globetrotter, that you have to be able to do that?
Rich, if you don't pick that up pretty quickly, your career is not going to last very long. we won't necessarily say that it's a requirement, but we'll say if you have any plans of playing for beyond 1 year, you definitely want to learn how to at least spin the basketball on your finger. And even with that, if you don't learn how to do that, you won't learn how to do this kind of stuff right here, Even in my suit, I can do it. Man,
I can hear the music. I can hear the music. I love it.
There you go.
I love it. That is fantastic. And the crowd goes wild.
Hey, that's rocking the virtual stage right there.
That is. And people are blowing up the chat box right now. They're loving it. Herb, before we break for the first half of the show and bring everybody in, how can they reach you? How can they contact you? What's the best way to find flight time?
Well, for me, I have a website. It's herblang.com. And at that website, you can see pretty much all of my social media links. I'm on LinkedIn. That's where I found you. My handle is at DATrotter4 on the social media sites if you're not able to go to herblang.com. But I'm available to speak to corporations, to coaches. I'm looking to inspire youth, universities, anything you need. Globetrotters have taught me to be able to adjust and make it happen and show people how to have a good time.
Well, that's the first half of the show. Stick around because we're going to move to backstage in a few minutes here for the bonus round. But coming up this next Wednesday on February the 17th, Chris Borja will be with me. He's a virtual conference and events planner and creator, virtual events online. It's an amazing build out that he does. He has a business plan, networking consultant. He'll turn your event into a big event virtually online. Chris will join us coming up on the 17th. And coming up in 2 weeks, we're going to do the turn the tables on the trigger. And I will be where Herb is at. I will be the one taking the questions, and I will be the one being interviewed by one of our own people. And that is a frequent flyer here on the show. And I'm looking forward to this. And the reason we're doing this again is to help you learn new tips, new techniques to bring excitement and just a different way of running shows and keeping it creative and fun so your guests come back more and more. Again, how to rock the virtual stage. We have the new site up and running. We are bringing up past content. It's rockthestageshow.com. Rockthestageshow.com. It has coaching tips. It has backlog of shows, and we are now funneling all of our new shows through that. Go find it. Go like it. Always rich@richbontrager.net. Reach out for me. Coaching and helping people rock the virtual stage, both companies and personally as well. So if you need coaching, I'd love to help you out.